Etsy stock analysis. What is going on, guys? Welcome into this video today. I know we haven't done these stock analysis the past couple weeks, but I do plan on doing them every Saturday for, as long as we can see from here on out. I just wanted to cover earnings about those companies I cover on the channel a lot, so I was doing those on Saturdays. But now the earnings season has basically subsided, we'll be back to doing these weekly. And this is the stock I'm actually pretty excited to talk about, mainly because, well, first of all, it's an easy business model to understand, so I think you guys are going to enjoy this, and I think you guys are going to get some value out of it. It's not like, a pharmaceutical company or maybe something in the semiconductor industry where, if you're a newer investor or even if you're a more experienced investor, in some cases, you feel like you just went 8 rounds with Mike Tyson.
Tyson knows he's got him in big trouble. If he doesn't,
but I am going to give you my full bullish thesis around Etsy. I'm going to go over the numbers that Etsy's been putting up, where I see this company going, what I would like to get into this stock at, all these things. I'm going to give you guys all this information in this video. So if you don't mind smashing that thumbs up button, that really helps out the channel, helps the channel grow. Also, if you want to subscribe, you want to see more videos like this, go right ahead. So Etsy stock, I'm not sure exactly where this stock's going to be when you guys are seeing this, but right now Etsy is currently at about between $185 and $190. Market cap on this company is under $24 billion right now. And if you don't know what Etsy is, basically it's an e-commerce site, but it's more of like a home e-commerce site where you can put really anything that you've made, any homemade good on there. And you can do this for a variety of categories. You can do it for jewelry, clothing, pictures. There's tons and tons and tons of categories. There's actually over 160 categories that Etsy has. So starting off with some of the numbers revolving around Etsy and Reverb. Reverb is another part of Etsy. Etsy actually bought this company not too long ago. Reverb is basically the leading global online marketplace dedicated to buying into like new, used, and vintage musical instruments. But anyway, between Reverb and Etsy, they connected 4.4 million active sellers to 81.9 million active buyers. These sellers and buyers are located across 7 different really core geographic markets that include the US, UK, Germany, Canada, Australia, France, and most recently India. These sellers generated total GMS last year, $10.3 billion, which if you don't know what GMS is, basically it stands for gross merchandise sales, which to make it super simple for those newer investors out there, basically it just indicates how much money is sold through a particular marketplace. Now, one thing I really just want to get rid of immediately right off the bat, a lot of people, and one big argument, one big bearish case around Etsy is that a lot of people say, oh, Etsy's just been driven because of the mask. They've done a lot of revenue. They've brought in a lot of money because they benefited from mask and it's a pandemic-driven stock. And I have to say that is false. Excluding the mask sales that Etsy did for 2020, they still managed to bring in $8.7 billion in GMS compared to the $4.9 billion they did in 2019. So that's still up 84% year over year. In addition, this past quarter, marketplace revenue actually only made up 4% of Etsy's overall GMS. This compares to 14% in quarter 2 and 11% in quarter 4. So they are still putting out great numbers even with the decline in demand in masks. And on top of that, 50% of mask-only buyers actually came back in 2020 for some sort of non-mask purchase. Additionally, last year Etsy had 38 million new buyers, which was up 102% year over year. Now, really getting into some of the numbers here. As for revenue, they did $818 million in 2019. They did $1.7 billion in 2020 for a 110% growth increase. Net income was $95 million in 2019 compared to $349 million in 2020 for a 264% increase. Adjusted EBITDA was $186 million in 2019 versus $549 million in 2020 for a 194% increase. And gross profit was $547 million in 2019 compared to $1.26 billion in 2020. As for strictly their fourth quarter numbers, their most recent earnings that they released a couple of weeks ago, they did $3.6 billion in GMS compared to $1.65 billion in quarter 4 of 2019. They did $617 million in revenue this past quarter compared to $269 million in 2019. Marketplace revenue was $473 million versus $189 million last year. Service revenue was $143 million, up from $80 million year over year. Net income was $148 million versus $31 million year over year. Adjusted EBITDA, $191 million this past quarter versus $54 million in quarter 4 of 2019. Active sellers were up 61.7% year over year, and active buyers were up 76.7% year over year. Now, they did not issue any guidance for the full year of 2021, and I really don't blame them for a lot of reasons. First, they really don't know when the world is going to go back to normal, so they don't know exactly how much money they're going to be bringing in from masks. They don't know if there's going to be another wave, what the situation is going to be. They also don't know when exactly things will return to normal where, people don't wear masks, where everything's full force. There's a lot of unknowns for 2021. 2021 for a lot of companies, including Etsy. On top of that, the new stimulus that was passed by the House very recently, we're going to assume that that gets passed by the Senate. So a lot of people, some people need this money. Like some people really need this money to pay bills. Some people, like myself, they're going to invest their stimulus check. But a lot of people, they're going to spend it on stuff and they don't know how much exactly is going to come back to them, how many people are going to go to Etsy and spend their stimulus check on that. So it can be very difficult to predict that when there's just so much unknown. So I think not issuing guidance was actually a pretty smart move by this management team. However, they did provide guidance for the first quarter of 2021, which included 2.9 to 3.1 billion GMS, 513 million to 536 million in revenue, and 168 million to 178 million in adjusted EBITDA. As for the CEO, Josh Silverman, I like him a lot, okay? Etsy was definitely not in the best place when Silverman came in and took over. They had a lot going on in that company and they were losing a lot of money and it just wasn't the best situation. And he really came in and he changed the direction of that company for absolutely 100% the better. He really changed the future and the entire mission statement of the company. He's also added, he's going to continue to add a ton of diversity to the company. He's been bringing in a lot of people from different races and a lot of ethnicities. That's obviously great to see. Everyone likes to see that. As well, he's also bringing in a lot of females in a super important role, so that's great. And he also has over 2 decades of leadership experience, which include growing consumer technology companies and scaling global marketplaces. I also really like how he's really changed the platform as a whole. Like for example, he's made it a point and he's really emphasized to include more videos on the platform to show how the products are used. And I really like this because when I buy things, I like to see what the product does. I'd like to see how effective they are. They had 211,000 videos uploaded for products in quarter 2. They had 1.3 million in quarter 3 and 1.7 million in quarter 4. And I expect these numbers to continue climbing. I'm not really going to go into detail about the rest of the management team, but I did look into them as well. And between all of them, they have a ton of experience and I really do back this management team. So now that I've gone over some of the fundamentals behind Etsy, I've talked about the numbers behind Etsy, I kind of want to get into my bullish thesis and I really want to talk about some of the things I like about Etsy and some of the risk I see with it. So first off, obviously, Etsy is in the e-commerce space. Where did e-commerce go last year? Up. Where is it going to go in the future? Up. It's currently projected that e-commerce is supposed to bring in $27 trillion in revenue by 2027. And this past year in 2020, online spending only represented 21.3% of total retail sales last year. So get this, right? Even with the insane growth e-commerce saw last year, only about 1 in 5 people were buying retail items online. Where is that going to go over time? Up. And some of you guys are probably saying, thanks for that, Karen. And if you look back, it's hard to deny that e-commerce did not see any benefit from the pandemic, and this is probably why merchandise sales accelerated 44% in 2020. If you look back before that, Karen, if you look back at 2018, e-commerce sales actually grew 14.3%. Then if you look back at 2019, they actually grew 15.1% with absolutely no pandemic in sight. I personally think e-commerce is going to see growth like this around the 14 to 15, maybe a little higher, 16 to 17. But bottom line, they're going to see double-digit growth for as far as the eye can see. Second, obviously a main concern with business is, it might fall out of style, it might fall out of trend, whatever the case may be. How long is this business gonna be around? Well, with Etsy, they can literally bring in money with anything at all. For example, a pandemic breaks out where everyone needs to wear a mask. All of a sudden, Etsy can turn a profit on that and start selling masks. Bernie Sanders falls asleep in a chair, they can turn a profit on that and start putting that on phone cases and mugs. It just really seems like this is a platform that has something for everyone. Next, and this is gonna have a couple of points to it, but first, I really feel like this is an area Amazon can't compete with. Obviously, Amazon has Amazon Handmade, but if you really look into it, this just kind of seems like more of a side hustle to them. It doesn't seem like something they're really pushing by any means. It's just kind of like there, and it's just something they have to kind of bring in a little extra money and expand the business at the end of the day. But I personally like Etsy a lot better than Amazon Handmade after looking into them both. First off, if you click on the search bar on Etsy, it will come up with a few different suggestions that fit whatever you searched for in the past, or maybe whatever is trending, whatever a new fad is, whatever the case may be, anything that's deemed as relevant. And in addition to that, I just feel like Etsy has more options than Amazon. I was searching for a couple of different things. I wanted to see how the search engine worked on both of them. I searched for a couple of things on Amazon Handmade, and the thing is, not nearly as many results came up as they did with Etsy. There were some things I searched for on Amazon Handmade that only came up with, I guess, 2 2 or 3 pages. But there were some that I searched for on Etsy, the same exact thing. They came up with 20 plus pages of results to choose from. And secondly, I kind of want to look at this from a seller's perspective, and there's going to be a lot that goes into this here. So first, 69% of Etsy sellers actually consider their site a business. And even if you're not considering it a business, this could be something that could be a perfect side hustle. You know, you can make your own hours, you can do whatever you want, you can put your own inventory out there. It's something that could really benefit a lot of people, and it's something, especially, you know, artists out there, it could be really fun for them to do, and a way for them to really show their art and just show off their talents. Think of it in a way, like, I compare this to like YouTube, all right? But like before, like, you know, 20 years ago, if you wanted to be super famous, if you wanted to really have a following, it was hard to build a personal brand without social media and all these things. So you really had to find a way to get on TV, I guess. You know, you had to be like an athlete or something along those lines. And it was kind of the same thing with like art and all those creative things. Now you can open up an Etsy page and you can start advertising stuff on there immediately as a side hustle, and then maybe turn it into a business like we just talked about. There's a lot of things that go into this, and there's a lot of the similarities I really see between YouTube and Etsy, and I really actually like that. I like that a lot. On top of it, let's be honest here. Millennials are not the best with money. We all know that. You can look it up, and there's nothing wrong with that if you're a millennial out there and maybe you're not financially literate, maybe you're just not good with money. Believe me, you're in the majority. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. But the point I'm trying to make here is more millennials want to help those of the Gen Z generation not make the same mistakes with money they did. So what does this mean? It means those from the Gen Z generation are going to want to make more money, meaning they would most likely like multiple sources of income, meaning they would like to start maybe a side hustle or a business that really has unlimited, untapped income potential, which opens up the possibility of starting an Etsy page. And also, looking at it from a seller's perspective, I just think it's more attractive to sell items on Etsy as opposed to Amazon Handmade. So look at it this way, just starting off here. So if you want to list something on Amazon Handmade, first of all, there's a 15% flat fee right up front. That's all you pay, is just 15%. But on Etsy, you pay a 20-cent listing fee. That's it, just 20 cents flat. Then you pay a 5% transaction fee. Then you pay a 3% payment processing fee. So you're paying a little bit over 8% to put your item on there when everything's said and done, as opposed to 15%. So obviously that seems more attractive to pay the 8% from a seller's perspective. In addition to that, Amazon Handmade only has 14 categories. They only have 14 categories on that site. This is why it seems like more of a side hustle to me. It doesn't seem like they're expanding it at this point in time. Well, Etsy has 160 categories, so obviously that's a much broader range of categories. You can touch a lot more people because a lot more people are going to be looking at a lot more different categories at the end of the day. In addition to that, ads. So Etsy runs ads on everything you post. So say someone's looking for a mask on Google. They type in, where can I buy mask? Well, Etsy might come up with ads, or maybe someone's on Pinterest and they see an ad they like. They can click on that ad, they can click on that mask, and it'll revert them back to the Etsy website. However, with Amazon Handmade, if you want to find something from Amazon Handmade, you have to go to the Amazon Handmade site. You're not gonna Google something like mask and it's not gonna come up with a link to bring you to Amazon Handmade. So obviously this is much more attractive as a seller because it's a higher likelihood that that seller's products can be pushed out to more and more people. There's a better chance of that happening, in my personal opinion, from what I've researched and what I've seen. Also, this one might not be viewed as a big deal, but it's a big deal to me when you take into consideration the first thing we talked about. So the funds. With Amazon Handmade, when you sell a product, those funds are available when you ship them. So that means if you're busy for a week and you can't ship that product out for a week, you don't get those funds until that next week when you ship that product. Some platforms do that, but Etsy does not. When that product is purchased from your Etsy page, those funds are available immediately. Now, like I said, this might not make a big deal to a lot of people. You just be like, I mean, that makes sense. I'll just like ship it when it's ready. Personally, I like to be paid for my job as soon as possible, as I'm sure a lot of people do. In addition to that, if you can have your funds instantly and pay an 8% fee as opposed to a 15% fee, that seems a lot more attractive to me as a seller, a lot more attractive. And the last thing, with Etsy, you can start instantly. So say I finish filming this video, I get right over to my computer, I start emailing a bunch of people, and I can set up an army of people to get an Etsy page going. And I can do that instantly. I can do it today, tomorrow, next week, immediately as I'm done filming this video. However, with Amazon Handmade, it's not that easy. First of all, you have to apply, you have to be audited to make sure everything is going according to plan and you're someone that Amazon Handmade wants on their site. And you can't have a team of more than 20 people. So it's got to be less than 20 people, which if you really want to turn this into a full-fledged operation and really treat this like a business, like 69% of Etsy sellers do, like what we've already talked about, it really doesn't make sense to start selling on Amazon Handmade, in my personal opinion. And if you're someone that's really, really concerned about Amazon being in this space and disrupting Etsy's process, first of all, if you're afraid of Amazon, then it's very, very tough to invest in any stock in literally the entire stock market, because they want to be everywhere. They want to be in grocery stores. They want to be in pharmaceuticals. They literally want to be everywhere. Second, in 2019, Etsy was projected to capture 5% of the e-commerce market share. 5%. If they continue to capture only 5% and the revenue forecasts are supposed to be around 27 trillion by 2027, where do you think this stock is going to go? And third, and this is super important here, this is a very big point I'm going to drive home here. In 2019, Amazon's market share of the e-commerce market was 43.8%, okay? Last year in 2020, that went down to 31.4%. Now, this isn't me saying, oh, sell Amazon, Amazon's going to zero. No, by no means. But what I'm saying is there's room in this space for there to be multiple big players. And if you look at what Wall Street projects, both their revenue and EPS should nearly double, if not more than double, by 2023. So if this management team can execute and hit these numbers, where do you think this stock is going to go over the long term? And lastly, to end this section and kind of cap off the things I like about Etsy, home sales are through the roof right now. People are buying homes left and right for a lot of good reasons, because they realize they need a bigger house because they're not going back to work. They need an office space. They can work remotely. They can work from wherever they want. So maybe they want to buy a vacation home. Maybe that makes more sense for them in their budget. There's a lot of reasons why people are buying homes right now. Obviously, personally, I see that slowing down in 2021. But the point of the matter is, the fact of the matter is right now, a lot of people are buying homes. So what are a lot of people going to want in their homes? They're going to want different things, that make their house more homey. Unless you're like me, where you really just don't have anything except for a whiteboard. But a lot of people aren't like that, and I don't blame them. A lot of people aren't that boring and that minimalistic, which good for you out there if you aren't like me. Anyway, getting back to the point here. So when people buy those things, where is one of the best places to get handmade things, to get handmade knacks, to get things to hang up in your house? Etsy is, right? And they want things that are different. They want things that are original most of the time. They don't just want those generic pictures of like maybe a plant that you can get at Walmart or something like that. Some people do. If you do, there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of people want something that's really going to stand out and make other people notice it. In addition to that, small businesses, those that made it through it, they're going to open up in 2021 and into 2022. Where's a good place for small businesses to get stuff like that, to set themselves aside from everyone else, for a customer to come in and say, I really like that picture, to create a really solid atmosphere? Etsy's a great place to do that. It really is. Now, as for some of the risk I see with this stock, because obviously everything you put your money into, everything you do with your money has a risk, as I mentioned so many times on this channel. First off is competition. Now, some of you guys might be rolling your eyes and saying, this isn't a space that Amazon can compete in. This is a space where I think Etsy is in a league of their own. And I do agree with all those things, and I do mean all those things. But the fact of the matter is there is competition in this space, and it is a risk. I don't think it's something that's going to impact their business. I personally think they're going to be the leading player in this homemade e-commerce market, I guess you can say. I really believe that, and I really see a bright, bright future for this company. And I really believe in this CEO after watching so many interviews on him. But at the end of the day, it's a risk that needs to be accounted for. Can they stay ahead in this space? Is Amazon going to, start ramping up Amazon Homemade? All these things need to be accounted for and taken into consideration when investing in a company like this. In addition, 81% of buyers are female. I'd like to see more males on this platform. I'd like to see them diversify a little bit more. And I truly believe Josh Silverman is going to find a way to do that, especially the way he's diversifying the company, the way he's bringing on more females onto the management team, onto the board. I really think he's going to do that. I think he's going to find a way to do it. And I think a lot of males have this stereotypical thought process that Etsy is just for females. And that's really not the case. I was on there today and I'm like, there's a lot of stuff on here I would buy. There's sports stuff. There's a YouTube banner I was talking about that I kind of want up here. There's a ton of different things that you can get on there if you're a male. Because I was always under the impression that Etsy was more of a female site, and it's really not by any means. I was actually very surprised to find that out when I started looking into the company and started doing all this research. So I'd really like to see more males on this platform, and I think that would really start to drive revenue through the roof. If they could keep all the sellers and buyers they have now and bring males on there, that would be huge for this company. I would really like to see that. But if they can't, then obviously that's a risk that you have to deal with, that this could potentially become stagnant and all of that nature. In addition, moving on to execution, like we kind of touched upon, The management team has to execute. And if the management team does not execute in this space, then the fact of the matter is then there's a good chance they might be left behind. And lastly, and I guess this isn't too much of a risk here, but it's something I wouldn't be surprised to see happen with the stock price itself. I really wouldn't be surprised to see Etsy being a dead money stock in 2021, meaning it might go up a little, it might go down a little, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it hang around the current levels it's actually at. And there's no denying that Etsy stock trades very rich if you look at the current PE. But look at where Amazon trades. Amazon also has a very, very rich PE, and Amazon always has. And it's had since Amazon was a $50 stock. So if you never invested in Amazon and you always thought it was overvalued based on that PE ratio, you literally missed out on thousands and thousands of dollars. And this goes back to valuing companies in different spaces differently, because in the e-commerce space, that's the future. That's a lot of people see that, and that's why Amazon trades so richly, because people have that vision of Amazon. People have that sight of where Amazon's gonna go. And I think Etsy is similar. And I'm actually, with Etsy in particular, I'm okay with paying a higher PE ratio than I would for, say, maybe some sort of other dividend stock like Walgreens or something along those lines. Now, big question here, big couple of things to wrap up this video. Where do I see Etsy stock price going, and what prices do I want to get in at? Well, if you look, analysts still project Etsy to grow over 20% in 2021 and around 20% in 2022. And analysts also project around $3 in EPS this year and around $4 next year on average. So taking all these things into consideration and running my own numbers, I personally think, and I would not be surprised to see 250 or 260 of Etsy stock this year. And like I said, I could definitely be wrong in this. I don't really like to make short-term predictions, but I could also definitely see us coming back to this video at this time on March next year, and Etsy could still be around the current levels at, $180 to $200. I could absolutely see that. I could definitely see this being a dead money stock in 2021 just because of how much e-commerce was accelerated this past year. But I find e-commerce might take a step back, but I think it's going forward right again next year in 2022. I truly believe that. And over the long term, I really think Etsy is going to be a $400 stock. I really believe that. Obviously, there could be stock splits, but I really see this being valued at over a $50 billion market cap. I really believe that at the end of the day. As for price points, I'm buying that around $200, plus or minus, maybe a little under $200. It's like, meh. Okay, like I like it, I'll probably double my money over the next 3 to 5 years, but the risk reward, in my opinion, is really not that attractive. Once we get to say $175, $180, around those ranges, maybe a little bit lower, that's when it really starts to intrigue me. So even we're getting close where we are right now. At the current levels, that's really when Etsy's gonna start to interest me. Remember, I want stocks that are gonna at least double my money, or that have the potential to double my money over the next 3 to 5 years. Now, maybe they will, maybe they won't, but I want that upside, and I say to myself, what are the odds of this at least doubling my money? What are the odds of me losing half my money? And I feel like with Etsy around $180, it's more likely that over the next 3 to 5 years, this stock is gonna go to $360 as opposed to $90. I truly believe that. Once we get under 150, if we get under 150, I'm buying a lot of shares. I love that. I would love to get this under 150. I don't know if it's gonna go that low, but maybe it will. And anything lower than that, say it gets to like 130, that I really don't know if it's gonna get back to at all. But that's when I really start to load the boat, and that's when I really love this company. In saying that, that is gonna be the end of this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you got some value out of it, if you enjoyed this content, please smash that thumbs up. That really helps out the channel, helps the channel grow. Would love to see you guys subscribe if you haven't already. If this is your first time here, let me know down in the comments what you think of Etsy. If you're buying it, selling it, what you think of it. I personally think they're gonna crush numbers. I really think they sandbag guidance for the first quarter of 2021 because they didn't know exactly what was gonna play out. But I'm pretty bullish on this company, and I really think they're gonna do great over the long term. So enjoy the rest of the weekend, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.